Okay. Please rise. Pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay. So, there's nobody on the call?
Nobody's on. Everyone's on vacation, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Cross your fingers.
Yeah,
Well, they-
exactly.
They can't get on now, right?
Right.
Built in that safety protocol so you can't bomb it.
That's great, the meeting room. Is it the meeting room area that you used, or was there a
Waiting
different?
room.
The waiting room, that's, you see on the Zoom.
Our meetings have been bombed.
We saw. I try to zoom in. That one, I was really glad I had my children.
Yeah.
That was something.
Okay, Mike, so I will let you, you don't have to introduce Laura and Pam, but you can go ahead and have them
Okay, the
go
first
over
thing,
their program.
Is that me or you? Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't.
that's okay. The first thing on the agenda is the committee that we put together last November, December to upgrade our code of ethics for the town, which also included putting together a committee. And we were lucky enough to get Laura and Pam and Betsy Shequin, Judge Shequin, to become that committee. They started working diligently back then. In the beginning, it was just a review of our current program, but then they reached out to other towns, got input from them, even reached out to the state level to look at what typically is recommended to be in code of ethics. Last month, because of conflicts of schedule, we were unable to present it, so we put it off to this month. So Laura and Pam are here, Betsy's expected, just to explain to the board and to those listening and watching what protocols and procedures they went through to develop this document, which is in draft form and has been presented to us. And they also worked with Jeff to fine-tune it. It will have to go through the typical process of adopting into local law. So there will be public hearing, there will be a need to vote, and as I mentioned to the committee offline, is there'll be suggestions that we will probably say, yes, that's a good idea, and it'll have to be tweaked, but I'm anticipating, hopefully, September, October, we can adopt this.
Awesome.
And it applies to, as previously, our ethics to everybody in the town, government, but it also gives an avenue for the public who have questions to go through a proper avenue, get rid of speculation and so on, and have an avenue of communication and openness. So I'll turn it over to Pam. Pam is the chairman. Laura and Betsy are the committee.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mike. As Mike mentioned, the starting point for our work was the existing Town of Washington Code of Ethics. It was adopted in 2012 and provided a really good framework and starting place for us to work. We also took a look at the current model code of ethics for local government on the New York State Controller's website. It was clear that the 2012 code was based on an old model code. The model code had been updated, so one of our tasks was just to bring us up to where the model is today. We reviewed other Dutchess County town codes. We found that Rhinebeck had a particularly developed code. We also reviewed the code of ethics for the Dutchess County government itself. We reviewed law review articles written by New York State ethics experts, and we even corresponded by email with one of them. And we also reviewed materials on local ethics prepared by the Association of Towns. Leslie was very instrumental in getting us in touch with them, and that worked out well. As Mike mentioned, we concluded that the Town of Washington Code was good, but it needed to be aligned with the current New York State Model Code. It also needed enforcement mechanisms, which were absent. It needed to allow for a process for complaints or issues being raised from the public, and we needed a more explicit recusal process. the existing code had a recusal process, but it just was sort of murky, and we wanted to clarify it. Finally, we understood that all of you were interested in strengthening the code, so we wanted to be responsive to the town board's guidance in the area. We conducted several drafting sessions, spent some time with Jeff and with Mike, and that was our process. Betsy, Laura, anything you wanted to add? Because we were all partners working through this.
Yes. No, Pam has done the yeoman's work on this with a lot of help from Laura, and I've just sort of waved my hand at them because they're young. Really,
She has the common sense.
And collectively, there is a lot of background with these committee members, both on the corporate level and on the community level, not just judicially, but also with hospital environments, corporate environments. So as far as their influence and their degree of knowledge of the material was excellent. I just sat there and was very impressed. But I think we have a model now for other towns to use. The way it's set up, it's very streamlined. As you've seen it, it's pretty complex. There are things in there that are fairly new to local governments, but I think it's what's best needed for all towns in these times. Mary, has the draft been posted on our computer, on our website? Yeah.
No.
Okay, but
Well,
after
it
tonight,
was
it'll
posted
be.
today, yes,
Right.
because it was on the agenda for tonight, but I wanted the board to have the first pass.
Correct.
Before we did.
So now the protocols will be, it's presented to us formally, now we have it. Now it has to, as Jeff explained to me, it now has to go, and we go from there. Jeff, what would be the procedures on this now?
So there are a few things that I'll say. First of all, you have an excellent board here, very diligent. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
This requires the adoption of a local law. Okay, you have the authority under the municipal home rule law to do that, to expand on what's in the general municipal law. So there would need to be a resolution of introduction where you introduce this at a meeting. At that meeting, you schedule a public hearing for the next month. At the next meeting, you hold your public hearing. If there are no comments, you can adopt it that night. If there are comments and you think, geez, maybe we should make a few changes, then you got to start that process over again. Okay? So at a minimum, you're talking 2 meetings, one to introduce this formally, and then one where you have your public hearing and perhaps adopt it.
So the notice required would be just 2 weeks prior to the September meeting for us to post it so that the public has time to review before that public hearing?
In theory, I should bring a resolution of adoption to the September meeting.
Okay.
And you should adopt a resolution of introduction.
Okay.
You would introduce the local law, you would schedule the public hearing for October,
Okay.
and you would adopt in October, unless you wanted to make changes after having the public hearing.
Right.
Well,
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I just wanted to echo everyone's sentiments at the table. I read it, I thought it was so thorough and so terrific, and it was obvious and very clear how much due diligence went into the process and the final document. I thought it was terrific. I had one question, though, and I have to find my notes. I think it was section 11. It talked about matters of discretion.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if it would be helpful to us, or to you all, actually, as the board that would be evaluating any complaints, to have, or for those that are trying to determine, thanks.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I sent
That's your email.
these questions to Mike, and I said, should we wait to,
Leslie, section 11? is that-
Section 11, it's mentioned a few times, but it says examples are in section 11, it refers to matters involving the exercise of discretion.
Right.
And I just said it could be open to interpretation of what are matters of discretion, and do we want to give, in the definition section, or within that, whenever it's referenced, or, I mean, maybe that's
Yeah.
obvious, maybe I'm
No,
overthinking it.
No, you're not overthinking it at all. It's really at the core of what the Code of Ethics is all about. Because if a municipal officer or employee doesn't have discretion, then it can't, he or she really can't be thought of using his or her office for private gain.
Right.
So if somebody's got discretion, if they can choose A or B, and they'd be better off personally choosing A, that's where the Code of Ethics comes in. So it's potentially very broad, and it's likely that there is a fair amount of New York State law on the topic.
Okay.
It's pretty much any decision that would come before any of the planning boards, ZBA, because they've got choices as to how they would rule. So
Okay.
we can make it clear that it's any application before
Okay.
the municipal boards, and we can look further. It might be helpful to have something in the definition section that really makes it clear to everyone how broad the exercise of discretion concept is. That's it, Laura, anything to add?
No,
I think that's right.
Yeah, that was the only sort of thought that I had. And the other was, there was a section about how long after someone serves on a committee could they have, I don't know if it's business
Yeah.
before the town or whatever, I guess, the knowledge or their activity and representing the town then be brought to bear against the town. It was how I
They were
interpreted it.
excluded 4 years or 7 years?
It was 2 years.
2 years.
It's
And my question was that the standard, and the only reason why I asked that, and Sarah Wilson brought this up, and I can't remember what application we were discussing, but and I could be nuts, but I feel like she had said 7 years, which seems like a long time.
Very long.
So, okay, but I didn't know if that was a state guideline, or if that was a timeframe that we selected, and if
I
it,
don't think they're guidelines for it, are they?
No, I think
No.
we
Very
looked at other
often
models
in
and tried to
and so-
compromise.
okay.
not-for-profit boards, for example, at the hospital, at Vassar Hospital, it would be a five-year look-back period. And that's been true at that hospital for 20 years at least.
yeah.
And I served as chair of that committee. So,
This one, Betsy, I
but this
think is
came-
2.
Pam, this came from the,
I'm pretty sure
The model code?
that this came from the model code.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so, I think that's where the 2-year came
And I
from.
think when you were discussing it in that workshop, when we were doing it, I think the rationale behind 2 years was, it's such a small community. Remember we talked about the size of the community?
I know.
And a lot of local businesses are involved, and that 2 seemed to be reasonable.
Yep.
If you went further than that, then you may not be able to have anybody from the
Anybody
town doing
served,
business.
right.
Yeah.
And it's actually fairly narrow. If it is that if you're on a board, then you can't represent somebody before the same board for 2 years after you leave the board.
But you can represent yourself.
But you can represent yourself, and you can also do all other kinds of work.
Correct.
So if you leave the ZBA, then you can't represent somebody before the ZBA for 2 years, but you could represent somebody before the planning board. So it shouldn't, it
Okay.
is not necessarily a constraint on someone's livelihood. You just can't work with the same board.
That makes sense.
Makes sense.
I think the question that we had was someone had heard an application, having served on a board, and then was representing that applicant. It had been a period of time, but was representing that applicant on the same case. But years had passed. So I don't,
Yep.
I just was thinking
Yeah.
2 years would be a little short in that particular case, but if it doesn't apply, if it only applies when you're going before the same particular board,
And there's
Then-
actually a separate provision in the current code and in the proposed new code that says that if you've been substantially involved in a matter while you're on a board, you can never
Yeah.
represent somebody else outside in connection with that same matter. So that's the substantial involvement test. So in that
Okay.
case, that you'd never be able to do that,
To do that.
which makes sense.
Jeff, a question. Now that the draft has been presented, and we haven't developed a resolution yet, but it is going to be out there, Should we allow questions to be submitted in writing now, or do we wait until it becomes, follows the process of saying we're setting up a public hearing?
I think it's a good idea to take comments now, because if
Okay.
you do want to make changes, we'd like to make them before the resolution of introduction is presented.
So we can state that both in the minutes, and we can also state it on our website, that
Oh, yeah.
as the public reads it, if you have some interest or comments, please submit them too, and we'll get them to the committee.
Okay.
It might help
So-
streamline the process, because I have those two
Absolutely.
questions.
Yeah,
and
that's
you're
what I was
able to
thinking.
answer,
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
quickly.
You had them quickly answered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
the, so the timeline is then, the next meeting, it would be introduced?
Introduced, correct.
And then we'll set the public
would be
hearing.
The following meeting, right,
So that would be, the public hearing would be then October.
correct,
And we could adopt it that night if there is not,
correct. If you're making changes, then you can't.
so we could have made changes prior to though, correct? Or do we don't make changes until then, even if we get them in writing tomorrow?
I think you want to get this in as final a form as you can before you introduce it,
Okay.
because that's what's being scheduled for a public hearing.
Okay.
I think in theory, you then make changes to that, you've got to introduce it again, schedule another public
I
hearing.
think we should talk about
If we
training do get questions from the public, should we try to work them through and resolve them ourselves, or bring them to you?
I would-
How would you like?
If they're
that?
making comments about the document and they're questioning areas of the document, just like Leslie asked, I think it has to be resolved here with input from our attorney if it has to go
And then we
there.
bring you a new draft.
Then the new draft would be that one, right, Jeff? If they make changes
Yeah.
tomorrow, it would be the new draft that becomes
Yeah.
the official presentation.
That's correct.
Okay.
Then we might change it again.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah, after
whether there was a
public
step in
comment.
between that you wanted to see it
Yeah.
before it became a new draft.
Right.
Do you want comments by a certain date?
That would
Today's
be
what,
good.
the 11th?
Mm-hmm.
September meeting is early, it's like the
Yes, it
8th or
is.
9th
It's
or
right after
something.
Labor Day.
So comments within 2 weeks, maybe?
That would be good.
2 weeks is
I
great,
think
yeah.
that-
That will give you a chance to meet,
Right.
work out our schedules, and I can sit in and just listen again.
Comments by September
learn.
25th? In
Yes.
writing?
August 25th?
No,
August
August,
25th.
August.
Yes, you're correct.
It's like 6:30.
Our next meeting's the 8th.
The next meeting's the
Very
8th?
on the right calendar.
Goes quick. Yeah, quick. September comes quick.
Comments by August 25th in writing.
Correct.
Um,
But they'll be aware too that there's a public hearing too, at which time we might get somebody raising their
Yes,
hand
you will.
Right.
and making a comment.
Yeah.
And you'll be present for that, so
Oh,
you
yeah,
can answer
absolutely.
questions.
Betsy, did you want to comment about training?
Yes, one of the things the committee contemplated in revising the code and upgrading in some cases because of the current and even past and current things that have happened, we feel that because there's some complication to certain parts of this, including topics like the appearances of impropriety, which are very difficult for some people, in fact, for everybody probably to some extent. We contemplated having some training sessions
Mhm.
for boards and even the town board, if you want.
Mhm.
Uh, that We put together some kind of thing to explain and address and discuss
Mhm.
the sections of the new code.
That's a great idea.
So
Yeah,
that
once we get the
I think-
final,
So that people, I think the various boards and committees,
Yeah.
Yes.
whoever you decide should,
Mhm.
or we think should, we would suggest to you.
Leslie's been doing a similar thing for planning and zoning using Pace University, and they've been excellent and well-attended.
Good.
Yeah, I think even, to me, it's such an important,
Yep.
I think, not to me, to all of us, it's such an important thing, and I think, what Mike was saying, seeing the response of people participating and kind of having it be sort of part of whoever joins that's new,
Mhm.
whatever orientation we're doing, we sit down with that person,
Yeah.
with the chair of that committee, and walk them through it too, when that
Mhm.
time, we just had a new crop of people come in, so it even actually makes more sense too, because we have had a lot of new people join a lot of the boards.
Would you undertake that training, or would you be looking for perhaps something on a state level that you communicated with their departments that they have trainers
Pam, you have some information.
Sure. We do have a deck that was prepared by the Association of Towns, and that's a really good starting place. And we could supplement that with bullets on the features that are unique to the Town of Washington Code. So that's, I think it would be a hybrid. Happy to have if the Association of Towns ethics lawyer is willing to work with us on it, that would be great. We could do a joint training with her, that would, if she's got the time.
Yeah.
When I asked them that question, because after my orientation, and these guys are going to want to jump out the window because I'm always talking about my orientation, but it was so informative and I learned so much particularly from that section on ethics, and I think it was just 30 minutes. But they asked if you had questions you could follow up with them via email, and I emailed them and said, is this something you do for towns? Because it'd be so beneficial, I think, for everybody to hear
Yes,
it.
indeed.
And they said they absolutely do. So I think
Yeah.
as long as the scheduling works.
It'd be great to do it together.
Yeah.
Yes, good
Good.
idea.
Good.
Very good idea.
All right. Well,
Anything else?
I'll mention one thing. I'm looking at section 21 of the code, and it's entitled Board of Ethics. A says, there is hereby established a Board of Ethics for the municipality. The Board of Ethics shall consist of 3 members, a majority of whom shall not be officers or employees of the municipality, but at least one of whom must be a municipal officer or employee. So right now, Betsy is town justice, she's an officer,
Yep.
so
Right.
she's the one member who is.
Mhm.
We have someone who serves in the CAC, and the issue is, well, if you're on the CAC, are you a town officer? We've tried to look into that, believe it or not, we can't get a clear answer on that. There's
Oh, boy.
town law, section 20 defines certain officers. Nothing there about a CAC, but there are some just kind of expansive interpretations that if you can act for a town, if you take an oath of office as a CAC member does, that you can be a town officer. So it's something we do have to address in this process.
Pam, do you remember if that came out of the law?
Yeah, it's in the New York State General
I
Municipal
thought so,
law.
yeah, so we can't change that.
But
But
we
it's
all take
confusing.
oaths.
The law is confusing, to
Even the
say
rec
the least,
commission
on this
people
subject.
take an oath.
No, but I know, does that make them an officer?
But
I don't know,
would
it's not
Betsy be
clear.
considered, I mean, she's sort of separate as a judge. It'd be one thing if,
She's a town
She's
officer by
employed.
definition, and New
Yeah.
York State Town Law, section 20 lists certain things, that's one of them.
okay.
And if Betsy was to retire and we had a new judge, I would expect that we would want that judge to be a member of the ethics committee. So I think that covers us for that one position that's
It does for
needed.
now.
But I don't see this as a big issue. I'd
No.
love to have Pam stay on this,
Yeah.
but also the value of Pam on the CAC. To me, it's a non-issue.
I think, I don't quite agree with that, Mike. I don't quite agree.
It's a
I-
vague
I-
interpretation.
And Laura, do you have something?
Well, my concern is that if we had an issue and we had a hearing and we went through a process and then somebody challenged it on the grounds that Pam was not an appropriate member of the committee, then we could have a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an issue someone could raise. I'd like to see her stay on both, but if she has to drop one, it shouldn't be this one.
No, I would say
So-
that vehemently. I'd even stand up to say it.
So another
Because
approach would be to...
Pam and
to-
Laura have done so much work on this that I don't think this committee could actually exist without the work that Pam has done and continues to do.
Right, I
The
agree
good
with that.
thinking
But there's
as a
also another
corporate attorney.
approach, which is to add 2 more members to the Board of Ethics, so that a majority would not be officers or...
That's the other way to go.
Yeah.
So instead of
I vote for
3,
that.
it would be
Yeah.
5.
Right. And the other 2
Margaret votes for
wouldn't be municipal officers, employees. They would just be members of the community.
Mhm.
Then you would have a majority. Laura and the 2 new members would not be municipal officer employees, and that goes
That
away.
also could add some definition that, it's some knowledge that we may not be terribly
Yeah.
cognizant of.
Yeah.
So we would have to amend our original,
Before we put
Just to have the
this,
majority,
right, we
right.
would just change that one section, and in the resolution of introduction, that updated version.
And you
would be
could
the
make, what does
version.
it say about number of
It
members?
says,
It It's
Chalkins
just the
is
three
three,
members, we
yeah.
can change that to
To
five.
five.
Change it
To
to
make it
five,
up
and
to
that's all we
five,
have
you
to
could
do.
make it so that there, if somebody isn't serving for some reason, that the 4 people that are left will still constitute a committee. What do you think of that, Jeff?
No, I would say five.
I think
but
you
only
need an
four
odd
show up
number,
for a
just- yeah.
meeting, you still have a quorum, but.
Yeah, I
So
know
we can
that,
say
but again,
just
I'm thinking of what
five.
Laura's
Sure.
concerned. Laura has had the best questions of anyone about various parts of this.
Nitpicker.
No, because you want it as tight as it can
You're
be.
not a nitpicker, you're just thorough.
Yeah, you want it as tight as it can be.
Yeah, and I just,
I would go for 5, just so that we would always have a majority.
So-
You wouldn't
Probably
have
the
a
logic
split,
behind
a
it is to
tie.
have non-municipal members
Correct.
be the majority, right?
That's right.
Because you don't want to
Yes.
have people who are
Right.
employees
So-
of the town.
So I can
Right,
make a motion on
assessment.
that, correct?
sure, I guess.
Can I make a
Jeff,
motion
that's
to
what Jeff
move it
wants
to
you
5
to-
rather than 3?
Pam?
Yeah, that's.
Does it
yeah, that's
require
fine.
if it's in
Does
draft
it
form?
require a motion?
We're just working on a draft now.
So
I'd
let's
say
just
it
plug in
doesn't require a
So
motion.
that would be a correction.
It'd be a
Correct.
correction, we'll just make it 5.
Okay.
Okay,
Makes
that's a good
sense.
solution.
You're welcome. Well, thank you for bringing that
Yeah,
up.
sure.
Pam, thank you for your concern about that.
You're welcome.
I'm not serious, but when
No, the
I
concern,
came
the
on the
concern was
board,
the
I
one.
couldn't do
Laura
any
raised.
business with
Is-
the
is
town
that
anymore,
it-
and I did it for free.
It's completely a
I could,
dispute
if I did it for
about
free, I
jurisdiction.
couldn't do
So
it.
unless there's anything else, thank you for all your work.
Yes, thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
I know
Thank you for
we're not
mentioning
dissolving your committee, I mean, this is just the first step. And
I
know
understand.
It's
So
gonna,
this is-
fingers crossed it doesn't get
Extremely
busy,
interesting.
but at least there's now something established that the community can be comfortable with.
Yes.
I think it's very
And I
important.
think we all appreciate the opportunity to be involved in
Thank you.
this and to be able to do it. I
Thank
think
you.
it's a great
Awesome.
thing.
We're very
It's-
lucky
it's-
to have
it's
the
been
3 of you.
It's been a really great experience working with Laura and Betsy and Mike and Jeff, so I think we have a good team together here.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the evening, and as we start to get stuff, we'll just filter it to you.
Please do.
Did you mention our Bible here?
Oh, yes, well, we have, we have
I
a,
got my back.
We need one in the library.
yes, we found
Look
a
at
whole.
bad thing.
Look at your
Bedtime reading.
post-it, yeah.
It is,
Oh, yeah.
we discovered the New York State Bar Association put together a whole
Oh, my
book on
gosh.
municipal ethics in New
We
York.
should probably get
And
that.
Oh.
Pam, you talked to this guy who wrote the
It's
book.
got-
Well, Actually, it was
Make good
Laura,
reading.
Laura who talked to the
Well,
guy.
that's from the, I
Howard?
got it from the guy.
Make
in
good
the
reading.
song.
It's got
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm a lawyer.
That's what happens.
Everything, little, I know.
Can we reimburse you for the books?
Can you?
Yes.
If you want to.
Yes.
Yes, we should.
we should.
Yes.
Yes.
So-
But I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to have
Copy.
one available.
One available for everybody in the library,
That's a good
yeah.
idea, Laura.
Yeah.
And you, Laura, you got yours back from...
I got mine back and see.
Yeah, but we'll get you, we'll get the town a copy, and then you can reimburse me for the town's copy.
Who was going to speak and
Okay,
stuff
thank
on
you.
the phone,
Yeah.
and Laura didn't have her book.
I said, don't call on me for anything because I don't have my Bible. I lent it to Jeff, and I haven't looked at it for 2 months. But it really answers a lot of questions and puts things in perspective, so it's worth
It
looking at.
actually is interesting reading, believe it or not.
Well, most
Maybe
of it.
just for
Put
lawyers.
one in your, one in your library too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so please let us know, and we'll be happy to reimburse.
I have no, I
Thank you.
can't remember what it cost.
Yeah, I
One of
don't
the-
know.
no, I
I'll go
don't
back and
know.
check my receipts.
Thanks again.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
ladies.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know. So,
Thank you all.
Thank you.
um,
Good night.
we had a request, I had a request from Betsy Moss, supervisor at Unionville, asking if, I guess they have like a balloon festival or something down at Timor Park at some point in the fall, and they needed an extra constable, wanted to know if Jimmy Brownell would be interested. I talked to Jimmy about it, he said yes, he would be interested. Does anybody have a problem with him doing that?
No.
Okay,
So we just need a motion on that.
yeah,
I'll make the motion.
second,
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, as long as Jimmy.
And following up with that, to authorize Jimmy to do the firearms training in October.
Absolutely. So
Motion,
moved.
second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I'm going to jump around a little bit.
He's an ex-Marine, he won't need too many.
No, for sure.
Too much training.
Never know.
Never an ex-Marine,
Never an ex-Marine, right?
former.
Welcome, Tim.
Hey, Gary.
How you
Hey
doing?
Tim, how are you?
Tim.
So Tim sent me a copy of a draft resolution from the village. They have approved people living in the town where available, they can hook onto the village sewer
Gary, you
system.
ready to explain? We haven't approved it yet. The resolution,
No, I'm talking about, I mean, in theory, you
in
approved.
theory, we have, yeah.
Right, yeah. You want to
Yeah,
explain?
let me explain it, yeah.
Yep.
So at our second board meeting in July, we focused on the sewer plant. And one of the things we looked at was a request from Lisa Evangelista to hook into our sewer plant along the lot that she's bought at the corner of Halcyon and the 343. And so as part of assessing that request, I asked VRI in Delaware to give us a worst-case estimate, how many people could be in such a situation and come forward to us and ask. 'Cause once we set this precedent, it'd be hard to reject subsequent requests. And the response came back about 40 additional properties along our sewer line. So the requirement would be family home abutted to the sewer main. If they requested to hook up to the village sewer system, we would have a special fee structure consistent with our village, as long as they're within the town. And we would require them to do a lot of Department of Health approvals, check plans approved by DRI, and all that kind of good stuff. But if they go through the process, we would allow them to hook up. And so we have a resolution that I want to take to the board next month. But I really want the town of Washington to weigh into this resolution in terms of what does the town want as far as advance notice, or maybe even some funding up front in the case that, for example, Joe, they need to go into the street to make the hookup. So maybe it's a matter of simply that they have to go through the town planning board, I don't know, whatever, but I'd like the town to give me direction of what I should put into the resolution to make sure the town is advance notice covered, you know, whatever ducks they want lined up are there as part of this
Well,
process.
does the village sewer abut any town roads?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
village sewer line goes up County Road out to the infirmary.
Right. That's,
And
down
it
on
also goes
Halcyon.
up, I'm sorry?
On Halcyon Road.
Yeah, Halcyon Road and all up.
well, that's the village.
No,
It's a town.
no, so they cross 243, that's the
Okay,
town.
okay, right.
So all the way up there and around Maple Hill Drive.
Yeah,
And then the county road, that's all
right,
non-village, but there's a sewer line there.
yeah,
So those are the properties that could come forward and say they'd like to hook in.
yeah.
Again, the requirement is family homes abutted to the sewer line, the property lines are abutted to the sewer line.
And, sorry. And you have there's a certain, when you say but, obviously you're going to give parameters on how many feet and all that stuff. Or can they run however long their
No,
pipe
no,
needs to be?
we don't
to
want
a-
that. We
Yeah.
don't say that, you know, I'm living in Unionville, and if I run a line, 3 lines. we
Yeah,
can do it here.
exactly.
Okay.
So you'll give all parameters on
Yeah.
that based
Yeah, so
on.
we'll specify
what
that,
Yeah.
So Tim, if I'm a homeowner in the town of Washington, but right now I have that pipe that runs down my road,
Yeah,
and I want to hook into it, you're asking if we need to require that homeowner to go before our planning board in order to dig up that trench and
well,
put
to
in
explain to you
that?
what you're going to do, yeah, whatever it might
Correct.
be. Yeah.
So
So,
they're gonna have to go to the planning board to,
Correct.
with their plans for the house anyway.
correct.
Right.
What if it's an existing house?
There are a lot of existing houses.
So they would still have to go
Still,
before
yeah.
planning to hook in?
Yep. Yep.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah,
Well, not
whatever you want.
they wouldn't, because it hasn't been, because this is the first time it's being, so that's what
Well,
you're
now they
asking
have
to put in
approval
that.
to hook in, whereas prior to today,
Well, they,
or this resolution, or what
Well,
Tim's trying to do.
part of the approval process would require the town of Washington, I don't care who it is, you guys, or the planning board, somebody stamp and say, here's the criteria that we want
Yeah.
you to meet in order for us allowed it to happen.
So right now, a town resident, without this protocol and procedures you're putting in place, can't hook in?
No, right.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, Leslie, that maybe you could, when you go to your next planning board
Yeah.
meeting, you could run this by them
Sure.
and see if they have any input. Like, for instance, we talked about if they have to dig up the road to get to that
Yeah.
hookup, they have to repair it, I would,
Right.
that
Yeah.
wording needs to be
Incur
put in
those
there.
costs, yeah.
So maybe.
Yeah, I'm
would you
happy to
mind
take
doing
that
it?
on.
This
Not
is
at all.
the draft resolution.
Great. And Tim, can I get this from you in email form?
Sure, I'll forward it to you.
That'd be
no
great.
problem.
I think it's a great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrific.
And
Thank you
we're
for
gonna,
doing
you're
that.
gonna update the village sewer one of these days.
That's right.
Yeah?
We started the process last month.
So, yeah, so
It's not cheap.
when we do it, we could
So
just
it's about
add.
$6,000 to do that.
Tim, is there a
Mentally, you can
timeline?
add-
Well, actually, we can
40.
do this now without even waiting for the upgrades.
Right,
Because there's capacity there.
there's capacity.
Yeah,
Tim,
one
do
more
you-
capacity once we do the upgrade, but for now,
Excuse me, do you have a timeline on this that
I
you,
wanted to take it to our board next month,
next month?
but it's not critical. So if it
What's
takes
the
more-
date of your board meeting?
September 11th, I think it is, at the 10th.
So less than a month.
Yeah.
When's
If
the
you
ne-
can't make it by then, that's fine, we can push
Okay.
it off another month. I just want your input before I take it to the board.
Just to give you some working time.
Yeah, it's
you know.
purely
Great.
sewer, not water.
Only sewer. That's
Only
correct.
sewer.
Good
Joe.
clarification.
Yeah, Joe, is there anything that you can think of right now that should be put in there from our end?
Not right now.
No?
It all depends on how detailed the taking of the road is. I mean, as far as we're concerned, if they're gonna do the work, I'm assuming VRI is gonna do the hookups. Probably, however, people will hire their own contractor.
Yes, that's right, but VRI is going to oversee it.
But any town road that's disturbed by them doing that should be repaired. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
certainly
Well,
should.
yeah, we'll have to look at that, because I'd hate to see these little patches of road all the way down. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you have 6, 7 houses on the road, I don't want to see 8, 10-foot patches, and another 8, 10-foot patch, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
that might be something that might have to be...
Well, by the way, let me say this, if the town objects to this proposal,
I don't object to it, I'm just
okay,
saying... I
if
think
there's
it
an
has to be-
objection, let me know, and we'll take it into consideration, because we're not going to do it, and, you know, if you don't want it.
Yeah.
Tim, who looked at the map and said there's
Delaware
like
Engineering.
about
Bill
40,
Bright-
about 40 people?
Bill
40?
Bright from Delaware Engineering.
Well,
and-
maybe you can get Joe what roads and what 40,
Sure.
and Joe could go look and see, you
I
know, God, if
I
we
know
get
Bill.
40,
I'll just call Bill.
Yeah, okay, fine.
yeah, okay,
Or Scott is even probably a quicker
yeah.
response.
Yeah.
yeah.
So-
Jeff, you had something?
If you were thinking of having the planning board be the municipal entity that would review this stuff, you might have to amend your town code. The zoning code defines what the planning board reviews, the site plan approval and subdivision approval. So I'd hate to see you have to amend your town zoning code to give the planning board authority to do this. I wonder if maybe the zoning administrator could do it, or the highway superintendent,
Oh,
as
yeah.
opposed to the planning.
That's a
board.
good
Rather
idea.
than the board.
Oh, I don't think it's a good idea.
It's just something to think about.
I'd help you, Joe.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That was a note I just
But-
made too, Jeff. Is this on the list of things we'd have to amend
As
the
streamlined
code,
as
the code,
possible.
you know, consider as part of other things we might need to look at with broader code?
But wouldn't it make sense, though? I mean, if somebody is building a new
Oh, it'd be a
home,
great
Yeah.
thing to do.
that they have to go to the planning board anyway, right?
No, if you buy an approved building lot, you don't go before the planning board to build your home.
Only if you need,
And if you're an existing home and you wanted to switch from your own septic system to a village sewer system, you wouldn't go to the planning
Only
board.
if you need variances,
What's that?
setback variances,
Yeah.
or something like that, where you want to build.
All right.
So it could be something, would that be within James's job description too, since he's the code enforcer, if it's not part of the code, or we could just,
You could amend his
Yeah.
job description to give that duty to
Yeah.
him as opposed to the planning board. It just might be an easier way to make
yeah,
this
that's good,
point.
that's a
Yeah.
good person to do it.
I mean, it's a little more mobile, too.
Yeah.
It also it
You
also
still couldn't run pretty well.
speeds up your approval of
Yeah.
the resolution.
yeah. Tim, when do you need feedback from the town on what you'd like?
So again, I want to take it to the board at our next meeting, which I think is the 11th September.
Okay.
But if you can't make that date, that's fine. I have no problem pushing it off.
I think that should work. Our next planning board meeting is the 6th. I get this in advance, but,
he'd be glad to do that.
Okay, you tell
I'm
me.
sure.
okay,
I'm just not gonna go forward until I've got your input.
okay, great. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Yeah, I think James is the right guy for that.
Yeah. Okay. So, Joe, you have the floor.
First, Killorn Road, I have some dates, well, they're not too hard. Next week and the week after. Next week, the boring company will be here to site where they intend to bore, do some markouts. The week after, this is all weather permitting, obviously, and they will be doing the boring samples. Other than that, I have nothing else as far as them being ready to address the board. It'll probably be at the conclusion of these two issues.
The two, you ordered 2 new trucks?
Yes,
Any time
one
frame?
will be here next Friday.
Really?
Really?
Wow,
Well, I bought that one off the lot, basically.
no
I mean,
kidding.
I couldn't get them. The other one may be here, I don't know, when I'm retired probably. It could be here January, could be here March. It's sitting waiting for a transfer case.
Yeah, not surprised.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you know where they come from. And they just, I guess they build them now without them, then they stick them in.
So the one that's coming soon is gonna be outfitted with a plow and
No,
sander?
we still have to do that under the Onondaga bid. I'm going to do it locally, Hudson River,
Mm-hmm.
which I didn't know, instead of the one up in Albany, works off the Onondaga bid, so I called them.
Awesome. Oh, that's
I drive
good.
it down there, and, yeah.
That's great.
We finished our oil and stone for the year, except for the sweeping, which will be done next week. We repaired Bangor Road, there was no cost to the town, and we sealed Overlook Road, and then worked with the village on Linden Lane and 9 Partners. Again, we'll be sweeping that at the convenience of the sweeper, I'm sure, but he said maybe next week, so.
Mhm.
Yeah, we just talked about the truck. I'm going to be loaning truck D5 to the town pool. The Kubota and tractor have been serviced and any repairs have been done. The pool guy rescheduled with me, Bobby, for next Monday, just letting you know, to look at the pump.
Okay.
That pump is a flooded suction pump, it's supposed to be below the water. It's not, but I think there's a control we can stick on it that maybe prevent it from capitulating.
Yeah. Well,
I'll take a look at it.
she's still pumping,
Yeah, no,
so
I know.
we'll keep
I'm
a close
only-
eye, we could keep a close eye on it
Yeah.
a couple times a day.
Yeah. Our mowing continues. Apparently, weeds grow without water. I didn't know that.
Yep.
Also, we have a bunch of junk down at the, I say junk, old trucks that don't run anymore, plows. I'd like to get them out of there, taking up a lot of room. If anybody feels they want to go down and take a look at this stuff, there is one truck that I think is somewhat, can be auctioned, number 16, which we just retired. But if anybody wants to take a look, Bob, or whoever, look at this stuff, but I'd
I
like
might call AAA auction and see what they think.
well, a lot of it's junk,
Yeah, I know.
really junk.
But believe it or
But
not,
if you want to take a run through and take a look,
yeah, some of that
you know,
junk,
it's fine with me.
they buy it.
But sooner the better, I'll have some room for those other trucks
Yeah.
when they get here. That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
Yep.
I'll do that.
That's what I was thinking, Bob, one of those got junk companies that'll come pay us for our junk, but there might be some things in there that, you know.
Yeah, I
are
do want to
salvageable.
thank Joe publicly for helping out at the park. He's
Absolutely.
his guy just mowed the...
Especially a cutting.
Yeah.
He just mowed around the reservoir, was great, and
Did the little
our
fence too.
Our two pieces of equipment up there that hadn't been serviced, that we didn't know hadn't been serviced in a while. Charlie was nice enough to, they picked them up, Joe made them pick them up, service them, and bring them
Oh,
back.
that's
So
great.
now, don't have to worry about losing one of those pieces of equipment. I think one of them never had the oil change for about 5 years, so.
Unbelievable.
Anyway, we're gonna keep track of that, and the mower will go to Reardon Briggs every winter, so it'll be ready for spring.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Joe.
Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Mary, did you want to do Lois's? I don't know if there's really not much there.
Excuse me, was going to attend tonight, however, she was exposed to COVID, so she got
Oh.
better attending, and she wasn't feeling so great, so I said, just rest.
Is she getting tested?
Yes. Yeah, she's been testing daily, but then she was exposed again last night, so.
Oh, jeez.
Your daughter had it, right?
Her daughter has it, and she was around somebody else last night that found it as well.
Oh, she, I didn't hear, is she okay?
She's fine, so far.
Good.
So we have all been working quite diligently. She's, does not have any budget transfers this month because she's still entering some of the vouchers. Most of them are entered, but not quite, so we will do them at next month's meeting, if that's okay with you, if we need to make budget transfers.
Sure.
She had possibly on the table or in between the vouchers, your reports. So,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
who she's at the
Staple to the agenda,
Oh, I didn't.
or for the bookkeeping report.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's probably in your box.
Okay.
You can take a look at those. There's nothing highly unusual. We did receive some sales tax revenue this past month. I think that was in the 40s.
I was going to say, I think you, did you email about it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's the revenue we have received. So we were, I'm going to go on to mine. We
Yeah.
were notified.
Mary, could I ask one question
Yeah.
about Lois? Did we get accounting from Park and Pool before Chelsea left?
No. Lois has access to the MyRec program, as do I. We are working on that right now. She has a whole bunch of receipts from the daily park admissions to enter. We've also located some camp money and some other registration money that she's been,
Yeah, we're coordinating all that right now.
Okay.
yeah.
I didn't mean to jump the gun.
No.
No, we, all I can say is it's a work in progress.
In fact, the documents for punch cards, deposits, daily reconciliations have all been brought back down here, and she is in possession of those now.
Yeah. So like I said, there was about 4 or 5 things that had not been deposited that we discovered, and she was working on those today as well. So as you know, we've been working on recreation projects. Since last month, Leslie and I collaborated, and we were able to get the grant in for the zoning updates and comp plan the day it was due. So we'll hear on that sometime September, whether or not we are successful or not on that. We were advised by New York State Office of the Comptroller, again, about the New York State Local Retirement Service Standard Workday Reporting. We had to revise it once again, and as I told you in the email, we were dividing by the wrong number. We were dividing by the number of days worked for employees versus the number of hours that we set as the standard workday. So New York State sent us back again the form and said you need to redo this. So we have redone it once again. Before I sent it to you, we sent it to New York State for their review. And they said, yes, this is correct this time. So you should have gotten a copy emailed to you.
You did.
Okay. If you are okay with it, I need the board to approve the resolution saying that you have authorized us to resubmit this to New York State.
We don't-
You emailed that to us, Mary, correct? I saw that in the
Yes.
email, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what's right or wrong with it, but I'd be glad to.
Basically,
I'd be-
what we were doing is we were
You
taking,
corrected your calculation.
right, Joe and I, the number of hours we work, that we reported that we worked, and I was dividing it by 20 based on 20 work days. We had to add up 3 months' worth of time, divide it by 3, and then we were dividing it by 20 rather than 6. 20 being the number of days worked versus 6 being the number of hours required. So so I do need a motion to.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
While we're on the subject of Hartford Pool, I just want to publicly thank Mike, Bob. I mean, you guys have really pulled that together up there
Yes.
under short notice. And I just
It was,
appreciate
it
what
was,
all you
everybody.
guys have done.
It wasn't just me and Mike though, even the lifeguards.
I
and
know. I know, everybody's had a hand in it. It's,
Yeah, I can kind of flesh it out a little
Yeah.
bit when I make my
yeah,
report.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. You're good, Mary?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
We had a copy machine malfunction this afternoon while we were copying everything for the meeting tonight. So I did not get to copy for you all the resumes that we have so far
Oh, that's
on
great.
hand. I've got about 8
Mm.
from Indeed that could possibly be viable candidates. I did weed out some that just didn't meet the Dutchess County requirements. No sense interviewing people who
Don't
just
qualify.
don't qualify. So I will get those to you
This is for the rec director?
for the rec director position.
Yeah,
I will email them all to you, and you can go through them. If you want hard copies, we can put them in your boxes to be picked up.
Could you just put them on my desk, please?
Sure.
Thanks.
Mary and I talked about this particular, and because we're dealing not only with us hiring, but there is also a corresponding governance board, the commission, that deals with the rec director, and they would like to be involved in the process.
Absolutely.
I have a meeting scheduled next Wednesday with them to talk about, updating them and everything that's occurred, including the number of applications. My concern is us 5, there's 7, the number of them, of hard copies that would be out there. My idea is we look at them and then we make a folder available for they to come in and look at them rather than have them out there, because I view these applications as kind of personal information.
Yeah.
And I don't think we want it being handed in a tree out among and beyond
Yeah,
those that should be
good
looking
point.
at it.
Yeah.
But they would like to be involved, obviously, in the interview process too, which
Yeah.
we will work out the protocols for that as we get closer. But it's good to hear that people are responding.
Yeah, it's terrific. That's great. That's great news.
We have figured out how to use the MyRec email lists. So one of the programs, soccer, we've got about 20-something children registered for soccer in the fall.
How many?
Last year, about 27.
Oh, so far, yeah.
Last year, we had 84 participants. So this afternoon, I sent an email to all of those that participated last year as a reminder that soccer signups are due next week. we'd love to have your children participate once again. And Jason Zamodowski has offered the,
Jason has taken over the oversight of that program.
That's great.
Along with Aaron Kelly.
Oh, he's great.
And Heather Olson, is that how you pronounce her name? Olson?
Ulster.
Orst,
Osterman?
Orst.
She pronounced it two different.
I know.
She said one way is
I,
the Danish way, and
yes.
but she has stepped in to help
That's terrific.
draft some things for us too.
I'm
But
just looking to see if I
Jason and
got it.
Aaron
It's going
Kelly,
out tomorrow. It
Oh,
says 24 hours.
oh,
after
sorry, I was gonna
that.
say, gosh, I knew I had to do something, but,
Yeah.
so they're trying to steer it, because it's coming up quickly.
I think that's great, and I wonder if we want to put a communication at some point saying Coach Z, which is Jason and Heather, are excited to get the soccer season kicked off or something,
That's what
only
we're gonna-
because,
at the
okay,
meeting.
I got 2 texts from people who said, are you asking if our boys are doing soccer, are we still having soccer, because I heard, that, and I said, absolutely, soccer's on, and,
Yes.
moving forward, so that just might get people
Yeah,
excited.
so the rec commission put together the email
Oh, awesome.
blast that we did.
Perfect, that's
and,
great.
So that's out there.
Yeah, I want them to embrace as much as
Yeah,
they
I think
can.
that's great. And those are really 2 very enthusiastic, organized people. That's great.
Yeah. And we have also talked previously about providing the lifeguards with a bonus. And you should have gotten in your
Yeah.
mailbox
Yes.
this information. So these are the lifeguards that have been with us this year. You'll see their number of years that they've worked for the town. So we've taken the number of years times 70 and came up with a base number. And then based on their hours worked, and some people got a little extra based on their performance. So that's the second number. Lois gave me the figure of $5,000 to work with based upon the lifeguard budget. And if you are in favor of this, or if you want to tweak the numbers in any way, we can do so. But this is the recommendation that Lois and I put together based on what we have been hearing from everybody.
Mike knows most of them now, and he could probably comment on their value.
And of course, I haven't met with all of them because vacations have come up and camp was shutting down. But Mary and I have talked about this. We informed, when I held my first emergency meeting with all of them, we informed them not only were we looking at next year's budget and how to adjust up because they're a valuable resource now and very competitive. People soliciting them. We've even had some of our guards contacted to leave our positions and go work
Yeah.
other places for substantially bigger dollars, like $30, $35, $40 an hour kind of thing. We also told them about bonuses because of what has occurred in trying to put out fires and so on. So they're aware of it, and I think this looks good.
Okay.
This looks fine to me.
I think it's terrific.
And we do have the money to work with.
If we have
It's
it.
not like we're tapping.
Do we need a motion?
We do.
Yes, I'll make it.
I'll second it. I think it's a good thing.
For sure.
The $5,000 would be the total, right, Mary?
Total, yes.
There was a motion and a
Mike
second.
offered it. and-
Yeah.
Oh, and I also
Yeah.
said, sorry, I probably didn't say it.
All in
that.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right.
The other thing is we had the bid opening yesterday. I sent you an email on that. We had 2 bids received. One is from Burlinghoff and the second from J.P. Woods. J.P. Woods gave 3 different bids based on 3 different manufacturers. I have not, Burlinghoff did not fill out the bid specs the way we had it prepared. So I have not gone through theirs to put it on one of our bid specs. So I don't know if everything is included or not included.
I read them thoroughly, I just, I would have to call them, Burlinghoff, and ask them some questions, which I could do tomorrow afternoon.
Okay.
And I told Skylar that I would get back to them as soon as we did the comparisons.
Okay. And I spoke with Jeff last year or 2 years ago now. We had a vendor that was the low bidder who did not submit a bid bond, and we still accepted the bid. So Berlin-Hoff did not submit a bid bond, nor did they submit a non-collusion certificate.
I see a signed one in there, though.
For Berlin-Hoff?
Yeah.
The non-collusion? I might have just read it wrong. I'm
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's,
You're right, it's on the second page.
Yeah, second page.
All
Yeah.
right. So I take that statement back. Please. Yeah, so they submitted all, so it's just the bid bond that's missing. So,
Mary, how much money do we have towards this generator?
Yeah, that's a good question. I forgot.
Do you know off the top of your
let
head?
me see if I can pull up the budget.
It's been so long, I've forgotten
Yeah.
how what we
Yeah.
had.
It's never enough under these
Yeah, never
circumstances.
enough,
I think I'm going to have to check with Lois because it says on here, building improvements, $24,000.
No.
And that doesn't sound
No.
right.
No.
So, yeah, well, she could let me know.
So I'll check with Lois and
Okay.
have her let her know.
Yeah.
So do you want, how should we proceed with this? Do you want to have another meeting, or do you want to base it on Bob's recommendation? What do you suggest?
Well, I think we have to know, number one, how much money we
How
have.
much, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to talk to, I mean, to be honest with you, the two bids are a mile apart.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody may have made a mistake.
We didn't get one
So-
from Scott, huh, Boardman?
Yes, that's the one from Woods.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah, it's a Boardman
Got it.
provides a generator.
Got it.
I mean, I don't know proper protocol, but I should talk to both of them. I wrote down like 10, 20 questions to ask them to be able to compare the two.
Apples to apples kind
Right,
of thing.
correct. And I could do that, email everybody, let them know what I found, and then what's the
Yeah.
procedure after
Yeah.
that? We'd wait till the next
Quick
meeting?
special
Yeah.
meeting.
Well, we don't need a special, we could even wait till next month if we
Okay.
have to, I guess. But we do have a timeline in the bid to complete it.
Yes. We did also talk about, I guess part of your question is, would they hold their number to to the September meeting?
Right.
I think we asked for 30 days, that they
Yeah.
hold the number for 30 days.
Yep.
Do you think that, did Woods just tally up all of the different, there's a total here that's,
Yeah, it's double what the other guy's
Yeah.
bid is.
yeah. I'm wondering if that's just a mistake.
No,
Okay.
no, because if you go to each manufacturer, they're very close to each other.
Yeah.
They're
No,
all
yeah.
like $100,000.
Yeah. And, you know, so JP Woods also outlines, Bob, who they use as subcontractors, because you're going to need a propane company.
Well, that's,
And,
that's in the bid,
and
that it had to be
these guys have it.
included.
And I get Burlinghoff didn't in theirs.
He
the one
didn't
I
say
saw.
it, he didn't say
Yeah.
it, but he was told that.
Yeah.
I will tell you that I met with both bidders, and I probably spent 2 hours with each one of them here at
Oh,
the
wow.
town hall and at the highway garage. And both of them, both bidders, Woods came with 4 people, the propane guy, the electrician, I forget what the other guys were, but anyway, they went through everything in this building, everything in that building to decide what the size of the generators are. And these generators the Woods generators are twice the size as the ones that the Burlinghoff said.
Yeah.
So somebody's wrong. And so I gotta find out who's wrong. I don't know how I'm gonna do that, but by asking the questions, I guess I'll get an answer.
And that was some of the questions of the people who did not bid, that were looking for information on, well, what size generator do you want us to bid on?
Yeah.
And we don't know that, and we're not gonna hire somebody to come in and tell us that. I think it's wrong. That's why I wanted the bidders to come and size up the need
Yeah.
in each of the old buildings. You know, we got welders in that shop, we got the salt shed, there's 5 or 6 sub-panels at the highway garage, and I made sure I marked them all. I walked these bidders to each panel to check the size of the breakers, showed them the furnace, the breakfast room, down the basement here. They took the voltage on everything. And how could somebody be so far apart? It just doesn't make any sense. And maybe one made a big mistake, and maybe one was right. So I guess I'll have to find that out.
And that's all I have.
Because Mike will cover a lot of this.
Mike, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Mike, you want to go?
Bob, you got ramp repair and all that too?
Yeah,
You
I'm
wanna
gonna go over all that, but I thought you could go,
Recreation?
yeah.
Oh, all right. As far as recreation is concerned, with the change in leadership, obviously there becomes a little bit of uncertainty among staff. We were in the last week of camp. We were able to coordinate a director of the camp for the remaining week. That closed successfully. The board, however, is going to be assessing the entire season, and they're going to put together a questionnaire that will go out to families. But we also wanted to go out to staff to get feedback on not only how this camp this year went, but what would they like to see moving forward. And it gives us, with change, there's always an opportunity. So this gives us and the board an opportunity not only to hire somebody that has vision going forward, but also to give them a little bit of a feedback of what the community might like to see moving forward. So they're going to develop a questionnaire. At the meeting, a couple of members have already started to suggest what they would like to do, so I'm going to try and committee that into a question to families, staff, camp staff, lifeguards, the whole realm of what recreation is, just to start to get feedback on how we can move forward. So that was camp. We shut that down. They had originally, I think, 132 registered. The head counselor told me they were averaging about 100 a day. Waterfront, swim lessons, so it went smoothly, no big incidents. Some socialization incidents, but that's typical of people interacting, especially children interacting, and then some of that feedback will move on to training, screening, those types of things for staff and what's expected of them and so on. The health department had visited prior to the leadership leaving, and that went smoothly. With only a week left, they were not concerned about finishing out camp, so we got through that. If it had been sooner, we may have had to work with the health department and the county a little bit more closely on screening particularly. But one of the higher-ranking counselors stepped up to handle camp for the rest, and they had an ice cream social one night to close it out. Then they had a closing ceremony the day of the last Friday of the camp, and so that was fine. Recreation is not just camp, but it's also the waterfront. So immediately we met with the lifeguards to get everybody on board, looked at schedules, looked at attrition. One of the requirements is in order to run a pool, waterfront, you must have senior lifeguards, junior lifeguards. Senior lifeguards are considered 18 and older. Typically, they are college age. Some are in graduate school. But once they start to leave to go back to school, you lose that supervision. You must make a decision on when your waterfront has to shut down. And so we are shutting the pool on August 24th. That will be the last day. That's the last senior lifeguard we will have. He will be leaving the next day. In fact, Liam has stepped up to assume a lot of the responsibilities up there as senior lifeguard, which he had been prior to the change in leadership, but also has had experience for a number of years, so kind of knew the ins and outs. I will say, though, that the other lifeguards, as you saw from the chart, with their experience, it's been a fairly easy, seamless transition. Their vacations kind of came involved with scheduling, so some of them are coming back now. So that will give us a little bit more strength for the next week and a half, 2 weeks. But the 24th will be the last day of camp. The rec board's aware of that, or not camp, of waterfront. We've been working very closely with Bobby Audia on coordinating the plant, the filtration system for the chlorinator into the pool, the filtration system in for the potable water, the groundskeeping, the staffing for groundskeeping. The hiring of Ted has certainly helped moving forward. We've accessed Tom Fiore, who was the groundskeeper for a number of years and really adopted that site as his own. So it was immaculate. He knows all the ins and outs. We brought him on board to try and speed up Ted's acclimation to the position. As was mentioned, we brought up one of the highway tractors that does the mowing. We got the pond done. One of the issues that we have no control over is the water supply. The rain and the lack of rain and the drought that we're experiencing has reduced the upper pond, which is the water source for the pool, by about 3.5 feet. So we're trying to bring in as much water as we can, but it is now noticeable over the last 90-degree high humidity days. When you look at the docks, the water is starting to drop precipitously. Fingers crossed we get some rain this week. We're confident we can make it to the 24th without becoming an issue. Even though the water is dropping.
Just to interrupt you for a second. Part of the reason the pool went down a little bit is we closed the valve from the
Trying to build up
reservoir
the
to the
water
pool,
source.
trying to build it up in our filter bed.
But the flow is
'cause-
not good enough.
Yeah, so we got and the filter bed did fill up overnight,
Right.
not from the stream, because the
No.
stream is dry, just from the water
Spring,
in the,
right.
the water in the,
In the ground?
in the ground,
Yeah.
yeah. And so now we've got it open again, so hopefully we get through these next 2
Right.
weeks, and then we're gonna drain it anyway.
Yeah.
But even with the drop in the water level, the testing of the water by both the health department and our daily lifeguard test is showing that the chlorination is staying at the levels it needs to be for a public use of a swimming area. The potable water, the pump failed. It didn't fail to the point where we would have had to shut down so that you couldn't use the water, but it was down to what the health department told us was the lowest level they like to see. So we needed to get that level back up. Yesterday, the new pump was installed. We'll give it a couple of days, keep testing. We want to try and get it up from a 0.2 to a 0.4, maybe a 0.5 or 6. That is important because the park itself, with the rentals of the pavilions, will remain open until, I think, Mary, we said October 3rd? Don't
first
quote
week
me
in
on that, but
October,
we
yeah.
do have some future rentals of pavilions that they will be aware that there is no swimming, but they will be using the pavilions, so the bathrooms are available. There is water that if they need for cooking and so on is available. There will be a staff person that will open the gate, let the people in. We need to have somebody on site, so right now, the junior lifeguards, even though they won't be lifeguarding, are being solicited to be those people that will maintain the gate, be on site if there's questions, make sure the bathrooms are appropriate, and then lock the gate at the end. Hopefully, I'm around so I can go up and check like I've been doing. What I've been doing is, during that last week of camp, I went up for camp opening, camp closing, waterfront opening, waterfront closing, every day, just to make sure that they were confident there was somebody there that was supporting them. I'm unavailable the next couple of days, so I've spoken to the rec board and our board that just as a courtesy, maybe if some of us stop by and introduce ourselves to the guards at the gate and say, you know, we're just up here, how's everything going? But I'm very confident of Liam and the other senior guards. If Liam has a day off, another senior guard gets appointed to that position, and through finance, we've adjusted their salaries to reflect that extra duty they've taken on. The concession stand has been shut down officially, but we need to address that because there are some perishables that are still in refrigerators. We'll work to get that distributed out, maybe to a food bank, or ask somebody to, if they want to purchase
It's
it.
not a lot, yeah.
It's not a lot, but corresponding to what we talked about the last board meeting of bringing in some trade professionals to give us an overview look of that entire plant up there. Both Bobby and I are getting eye-opening, revealing of it's aged out. Nobody's fault, but it does need attention. And cleanliness is an issue. Old equipment's an issue. Structure of offices and sheds and equipment is an issue. So by setting certain protocols and standards, we're starting to address that with Teddy. Bobby has done a lot of the rearranging of equipment. I've made the rec board aware of when it involves recreation equipment, that needs to be attended to, inventoried, kept in proper bins, locations. The soccer people are going to work with Ted to lay out the fields for soccer, perhaps assist in the lining because he does not have that experience right now. But once he goes through it a couple times, that's experience he will have for the future. One of the things we're going to insist with the new rec director is we need to run this more as a business, and we need to run it as an operation, and it may require additional staffing. We don't know that yet, but as far as the grounds, I think Bob's got some input onto what he feels is needed up there for staffing. But it's been as seamless as it can be, but of course with change, things pop up. Whenever there's a change too, and not education down and communication of what standards and protocols have been, sometimes a question is being asked and nobody has the answer because the answer was never relayed to them on how to do things. So we're overcoming that. I can't wait for the 24th. But once that happens, I think we can take a deep breath. But the emphasis now is getting through the 24th, accommodating all those people that have made reservations. We're going to send an email to them. If they weren't aware that there wasn't going to be a waterfront available, we're going to offer them the ability to cancel or perhaps refund them if they still want the pavilion. Others, I think, into September, October would have been aware there was not going to be any waterfront. But again, give them the opportunity now that there's a change in leadership. Do they want to cancel or continue? We'll give everybody that choice. And then by October 3rd, I think we should not move forward on any more pavilion rentals, only because I'll be losing the high school kids to football, other activities within school, and I won't have the availability of staff
Yeah.
on the weekend. And quite frankly,
Time to button everything.
none of us, but as of the 24th, we'll start to drain the pool, get it down, and we'll walk through with Tom Fiore's guidance and Ted's expertise, Bobby's input, my input, and maybe we bring some professionals up there. What do we need to do to winterize this thing? And then what are the protocols next year for opening this up? Because if you took a serious look at the pool bottom and the edges, too much vegetation was left. It wasn't cleaned properly. And that led to, not that we're violating any health care, but the depth of water vision is probably not to where I'd like to see it. I know when I ran the rec, the health department said you needed to see 3 feet down. I don't know what their standards are now, except for the chlorination. But just weeding, sanding, grading, painting, basic stuff cosmetically, but we also have to look at the plant itself. And that dovetails to which, once we get this feedback from the professionals, maybe we'll have to do something like Stanfordville's doing, or Amenia's doing, where we actually get into a major campaign to upgrade that.
Yeah,
New
Joe-
technology on the pumping system.
Yeah, Joe reached out to a professional
Yeah.
that does large bodies of water like that for swimming.
Oh, wow,
And
that's awesome.
the,
We'll take a look.
the guy has postponed coming twice, but he's doing it as a favor to Joe.
Yeah.
He's gonna look at our overall situation as far as the pool and the pool water and the pumping and all that.
We need electric looked at, we need plumbing looked at, we need
Yeah.
bathrooms looked at, we need kitchens looked at, we need storage areas looked at, paving looked at.
Yeah.
Even the grounds themselves, are there more modern uses of the grounds, like pickleball courts? Not that
Yeah.
I'm saying we're gonna do that, but everybody tells me we should.
Yeah.
But to look at that, to look at those fields that we have, not the upper fields, but more that big broad field that's to the left of the building.
Right.
The main building itself that we spent money when, I think Warren was the rec director, and we built that building. Better uses of that, sprinkling it, better kitchen maybe, that you can then rent that facility out.
Yeah.
Maybe you can hold dances there. One thing I found out from Ted, or Bobby, Ted's wife has a cousin or something involved in lacrosse.
Ted told-
He was visiting on the weekend, Ted took him up there to look at the fields above. He said, oh my God, I could do so much with a soccer, or a lacrosse camp.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. I think that's the future. And I think change is great,
Yeah.
because as everybody on the rec commission is saying, this is a great opportunity
Yeah.
for us to really envision what we can do here. And as I've been saying to people, this is the third jewel in the town. You got the Thorne Building, you got now what's happening at Bennett, and then improvements up here.
Yeah.
You got some
Yeah.
pretty nice facilities in the town once this is all done.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
so that's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's good.
It's a lot.
Guys have done
Kudos.
a
Thank
yeoman's
you.
job.
Thank you so much.
Both
Yep.
of you.
And Mary, you've been handling all the descriptions, the paychecks, the everything.
And Lois too with the
Lois, yeah.
It's-
payroll
again,
today.
it's a
She's
team effort.
She's willing to
Yeah.
run an extra run. I informed the guards today that moving forward, all their checks will be sent home because of down staffing. All the checks were being brought to the building. They were picking them up. I want them all to go to the home now so that everybody gets it when they
Yeah.
expect it. The last thing I have to report is short-term rentals. I'll just inform the board and the public that there is a in-service seminar taking place up at the Roosevelt Estate, National Historical Site. And Jeff and I have signed up for that.
Oh, that's awesome.
To attend that. And it's all on New York State's approach now to short-term rentals. Once that occurs, we can probably start moving forward on developing what we need to develop for coding and stuff. But again, that's going to be new laws, public hearings, and so on and so forth. Now that also the other comprehensive plan has been submitted, it kind of dovetails, because they did address short-term rentals in their surveys and their recommendations. So we'll be working concurrently with that.
A question that I had was, so this seminar is it updating whoever attends on what the code is now, or are there new,
I think it's,
is it new legislation that
it
the
looked like
state?
the overview was on both old and new,
I
right?
think so, yes.
Yes.
So there could be recommendations that were made in the comp plan that could need to be adjusted based on whatever their new,
Correct. We'll get that feedback.
that's great.
That's my report.
Good, Mike, thank you. Good report. Mary, do we have anything for Jeff that he needs to say? Hate to keep you here, Jeff.
Not that I'm aware of.
Do you have anything for us?
No.
I hate to have you just,
Just you'll get me the final answer on the
The plumber.
like a plumber,
Yes,
or
I will.
just on just
I will.
doing routine service.
No.
That's what it is. Thanks,
so
Jeff.
thank you, Jeff.
Okay. Have a good night, everybody.
Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Jeff,
Good night, Jeff.
thanks for the work on that committee, with that
Oh,
committee.
yeah.
Oh,
They're very good.
Yeah, that was a good project.
no, it's such a terrific group and such a
Yep.
thorough,
Yeah.
incredible, thorough document.
So Bob, you want to pick up with,
Yeah, I mean, I'll just, I guess I'll start with our ramp. We owe James a little thank you. He
yeah,
spent some time and patched it up so it's usable. The problem with our ramp is that we salt it, and it was put together with screws and nails and no stainless steel, and eventually all the fasteners have gone bad. I have 2 contractor volunteers to come look at it. One came already and looked. They went underneath, they measured. Their recommendation is to redo it with all stainless steel, Trex, something that'll last a really, really long time. They're going to give us an idea so we know what to do budget-wise. The second one, we'll look at it soon, just to take a peek, volunteer to give us some recommendations. Once we know that, then we can put it on our list of things to do.
I talked to James about the trucks.
Yeah.
He seemed to think
Slippery.
that too slippery.
Too slippery. So he told me that also. So we'll be looking at, there's various types of
Is there?
that type of longevity type of material. The AC handler in the basement has been leaking this is the 2nd season now. It does not get used very often because it just air conditions our 2 record rooms and the planning board office in the basement. Actually, it stays in the 60s down there with it off, even on these hot days. But the humidity goes up if you don't turn it on from time to time. So Mr. Munderback, who did the new air conditioning upstairs, volunteered to stop over and take a peek for me. I came over with him, he went down there, and he says, well, to take a peek, I gotta take it apart a little bit. So he did, and we found out that there's been no air filter in the system probably forever. And the condenser was plugged solid. And to properly clean it, you have to take it apart. It's probably older than him because it's a Magic Chef. It's working.
Oh my gosh.
It's working still. And he was right because he just gave it a quick clean while he was there with a vacuum and some brushes and sprayed stuff on it. And we turned it back on. It purrs like a kitten. We let it run for a whole day. I went down there, wasn't one drop on the ground. So in other words, the pump was picking it up in the
amazing.
drain. So probably my recommendation would be that I buy a new filter for it, which can't cost much, $40 maybe or something, and just let it rip for now.
Yeah.
And if it does blow up at some point, you did check the pressure on the unit outside and the amount of freon, and it was fine. But I can get an about number to replace it
if we want to try to put it in a future budget. I don't know what the board feels about something like that. Again, it's not a super, it's not like air conditioning
Right.
this room where you have court and the offices and upstairs. So,
I mean, if the,
Mary, and we'd like your input, but
yeah, I'm wondering, Mary, if we had just as a backup, just thinking of my own basement, also, you could hang meat in there, even if the rest of the house is hot, you know,
Right.
where the air conditioning's not on. But you can use these dehumidifiers if, you know, plug one of those in. Is it humid down there or has it been?
It's not humid now
Because
because
the
we've
air
had
conditioning's working.
we've had no rain.
Okay,
And we've had no water infiltration in the basement.
Okay.
But during the summers, when we've had heavy rains, the water comes up a little bit through the concrete
Okay.
floor, and then it gets a little moist down there. And I have put dehumidifiers down there in those time
Yeah.
periods to
Does
take
it-
the humidity out, and it stays pretty cool. It's just that if you get a bunch of planning board members in that room down there,
yeah,
they need to turn it on
yeah.
and turn it up. So that's the crux of it. So we could just let her go until she goes, I guess.
I mean, that would probably be because we'd have to get a new quote because they probably wouldn't stand by the quote unless it's within a certain
Oh, yeah.
period of time.
No, but I'm just
Yeah,
saying
but for
that
planning
I might
purposes,
ask them
yeah.
just a ballpark
Yeah,
number
yeah.
to let you know at the next meeting what they think it
Yeah.
would cost to do that. And of course, the newer stuff today, we could probably do like they did upstairs with those mini splits. We could put a small mini split down there
Mhm.
that would do the job.
Yeah.
So just,
Well, that's not a bad idea, Bob, for planning purposes. To
yeah,
see what
just
they
to get
say.
an idea, you know. Just a comment on our new hire that started this week. He looks like a good fit. He's pretty energetic. He's dug right in. Tom Fiore wanted to volunteer his time. I wouldn't let him do that because we'd like to have him on call to help Ted.
Yeah.
And he agreed to do that. He lives down the street. He's always willing to help. And
And Ted has called him a couple of times.
yes.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, the park and pool is just a huge asset to the community and the taxpayers in the community, and it needs us to take a good look on how to improve it and maintain it, as
Yeah.
Mike said. So I wanted to just double up on that. Our lawn mowing guy up there, which, believe it or not, he's still mowing around the pool. The grass has been growing around the pool. The ball fields he has to keep, especially in the shaded areas, it's been growing. It gets, some moisture, the dew moisture up there on that hill. His brother died, and he will be gone for 2 weeks. So tomorrow, he's gonna make sure that everything that needs to be mowed is mowed. Ted will keep an eye on it, especially the field. So just wanted to let you know that. Just a couple things that happened up there that you should all know about is that all the bathrooms got plugged up. It was like an emergency. I ran up there, the lifeguards were closing the door and saying, "We're done, the bathrooms are closed." And as I went into both men's and ladies. The last stall in each one of them, which are handicapped, were working still. So, and the sinks were working.
This was 3 days of camp left.
3 days of camp left.
I mean-
So,
The camp diary, you need to write a book. I mean, you
Yeah.
guys need to too.
yeah, so anyway, we finally got it taken care of. It was some kid threw a whole roll of
It
toilet
looked
paper.
intentional, so what we did is the counselors spoke to the children and said, look, that's inappropriate conduct, and if it had not been repaired, we would have had a shutdown, so they kind of understood it. We hope.
Yeah.
But
And then,
it was fine by the end. We
yeah,
were
so we
fine.
went to assess the soccer building at the top of the hill, and we opened the door, and that's where we store our big Kubota tractor with the forklift and the rake that rakes the pool and does all the work. Quite an expensive piece of equipment, which is in really good shape still. And somebody used it, they blew the front tire on it, they backed it in, didn't tell anybody. So we got that fixed right away. Then the chlorinator, as Mike said, broke for the drinking water. couldn't find one. I drove all the way to NNS to get one. I got it back up there, found out it was the wrong voltage. No one had one anywhere. So we ordered it real quick online. We got it a day and a half later, and we got a plumber to put it in. So that's back working again. The pool pump station seemed like every time we got those couple little rainstorms, the breaker would trip for the pump, and it would go off. Breakers, I mean, like the last 3 days, no problems at all, but we called Novak Electric to just check the breaker. So that was another issue we had. Mike, we found there's a squirrel getting in the ticket booth raising hell with everything. And they do raise hell. And of course, we're worried about the water level, which Michael spoke about. And we have to rethink, and maybe the rec commission with Mike's help, about the concession for next year, what to do. Mike had a great idea about asking some food truck operators if they'd be interested.
Well, they'll brainstorm on it.
Yeah,
But we need to think about, again, what do people want?
yeah.
Right. So the other thing I have is just about the electric charging station proposal for the town. Tim left, but I'll pass a few of these out. I just did this quick little sketch thing of the town hall. Just rough, yeah, just a rough little thing. And anyway, we have, I took a 9-foot parking space. I went around and measured a few parking lots that are lined, and they vary from 8.5 feet to 9.5 feet. So I took a 9-foot and I took a ruler and I just quickly measured, and we have 15 parking spaces against the back fence, 8 against the back of the building, 2 handicap on each side of the building. And my proposal would be that Livingston Energy Center, because they're going to own the station, everything, it doesn't matter where we put it on the property, they'll be able to put the power to it. They'll only do 2 stations, which would charge 2 cars each, so 4 spaces. The village didn't like the idea of putting them off of the front, over the sidewalk. I met with them and the mayor and their highway guys. They said the street's too busy. I didn't agree with that, but that's okay. So there's 2 trees on the side of the building here, facing the building on the left side. 2 big, huge trees. And there's 60 feet between the 2 trees, not the trees themselves, but the wood chipped area around them. To have 4 9-foot spaces and put 2 charging stations in, you'd need 36 feet, which would give us 12 feet on each side of those trees, very easy to maintain. My idea is to present this proposal to the village, ask them if they would prepare or work with Joe just to prepare the spaces. We either blacktop it, cement it, or maybe just gravel and stone it for now to see how much use they get.
Yeah.
And actually, I also thought of going to the business association, because they're the ones who have been screaming to the village that they want some electric charging stations. Tribute Garden's not ready to put any in any of their parking lots yet. Don't believe it's time yet. I'd go to the business association just to ask if they could help, if any of the business people possibly could help with some of the landscaping around it, or maybe footing the bill for the little bit of work that it needs to get the spaces. So I'd like everybody to give me input on that, what you think.
I think this looks great.
Yeah, it'd be simple to maintain.
Yeah.
It's easy in and out. You can put a sign down by the street to, municipal charging stations there. They handle, listen, we wouldn't make any revenue off them, but we wouldn't have any worries at all.
Yeah.
Jeff had a bunch of questions. I forwarded the questions to Livingston. They said it doesn't look like, it looks like we can take care of all insurance The parking spaces will be open to the public without an electric vehicle, so on a big meeting night, anyone can park there. There won't be any signs that says electric vehicles only.
Great.
So those 4 new parking spaces will be able to use. Howard can park there when he comes over anytime he wants. Without his electric car, and Margaret too, so.
I'll bring my new electric.
Your name, Howard, won't be on the slot, though. We're not gonna name it.
Yeah. So anyway, that would bring us up to 31 spaces of 9 feet apart, and I think it's a doable thing. It's not gonna cost us a penny
Yeah.
except for a little maintenance and a little preparation. And we could get the village to, they will agree, they did agree to help us, to maintain it and do it, so.
That's great.
Report, thanks, Bob.
I don't think I have anything else.
We just went to California to go pick up our daughter from camp and thought it would be fun to try out an electric car.
Oh, fun, right?
It is. It is like, because you have to really figure out where you're gonna
You bet.
find a charger,
yeah.
and then
Oh,
is it a
yeah.
supercharger,
Yeah.
So people will,
You get range anxiety.
I mean,
Range
it
anxiety.
probably shouldn't be on the record of my feelings, but
But
electric
you're in
vehicles
California,
after.
there's a charging station everywhere.
I know, and even
Everywhere.
with that, it was,
A little scary.
it's challenging. You really have to plan, ahead of what you're
Yeah.
gonna,
Yeah. You bet.
anyway, so,
I gave, what's her name on the village board?
Vicki?
Vicki Cantino. She has an electric car, and she's the one that has been working with me on it. And I give her articles from automotive magazines all the time about the charging stations. The newest article I gave her Tuesday night was 2 pages long that said that really to make them super viable, they'd have to use Mr. Musk's idea of uniform batteries for all electric cars, and or maybe 1 or 2 types.
Yeah.
Where you could, you're driving down the road,
you swap it out or something?
you pull in, you put your credit card in, and electronically, one battery comes out, the new battery, all charged up, goes in about the same amount of time it takes you to fill your car with gas, and maybe at around the same price.
Pull the battery out, is that what you're saying, and put another one in?
Honestly, I think it's the only way, because,
Mr. Musk had a video, I don't know if you
No.
Google it or look for it, he had a video where there's a company in China, of course, that already developed a system where if all the batteries were the same, all the cars had them, they're all underneath the cars, so you would drive on the platform
Yeah.
like a service station. Maybe all the current service stations will have that someday. Drive on the ramp, and you put your credit card in, and you put the car in neutral or something, it levels it out, and it takes you sit in the car, and the battery comes out, and another charged battery
And
goes
how
in.
long does it take?
And off you go. 4 to 8 minutes.
How long does it take to charge?
oh,
Oh,
an hour and a half at
least,
least.
so
yeah, even
Yeah.
a quick charge.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. If you plug it into your home, you get 3 miles an hour in a regular outlet. So if
Yeah.
you're gonna,
Yeah,
do
one
the
10
math,
hour
like
line, yeah.
10 hour, you really can't have it be your primary
No.
vehicle. But they have these supercharge stations, which will do it
Yeah.
in 15 minutes, but
Right.
they're not
The
as.
one I put in at the dealership years ago was a 240 station. It's not the super
Yeah.
high one. But in 4 hours, I think you could get a full charge, so 250
Yeah.
mile charge.
Have you, has the fire department done training?
Yes.
On
Yes.
how to put the fires out with them?
Absolutely.
Have you talked to them about these stations yet?
I haven't.
I would drop it on the chief, let the chief know that you're putting them
Right, I'll
in.
be talking to the chief tomorrow afternoon.
Good.
So I gotta put a Knox.
Yeah, I just let them
buildings.
make sure they know it's going in.
Yeah, but they are all trained, and
Okay.
by the way, electric cars, when you open the hood, every single high-powered line is bright orange on every single one of them. So when they get in an accident, the car's on fire, and they want to shut the power off, they have to know,
They're gonna be careful.
they have to know what they're gonna cut.
Yeah.
Because if you grab a hold of one of those battery lines,
Not good.
not good.
And they say they have self-fire fires have started several days after the original fire. So
Yeah.
it's been interesting.
Well, cars that have been in accidents
Thank God I
have been
won't
brought
be
to a
here.
junkyard.
Yeah.
and now-
It's gonna be
Yeah.
the
They
year
have to be
3000 when you and I are no longer.
And they are, matter of fact, I
Just
think, registered salvage
is what
yards
gets me.
had to have purchased, if they take any electric cars into a salvage yard, they had to have purchased the machine that discharges the batteries, a discharge, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, Leslie, you have
Oh,
the
is it
floor.
me?
You have the floor.
I'm gonna try to keep it quicker than usual, but I have a 3-pager
Margaret-
here.
Before Margaret and Howard.
Oh, it's
Well,
always interesting.
Mary mentioned it in her remarks, but I wanted to start by thanking Mary for her tremendous work on helping to get this CFA application in, which is the Consolidated Fund application to the Department of State. It was submitted on Friday, July 26th. This funding, if we're successful, which I'm very optimistic that we will be, or at least we certainly think that way, would go towards funding phase 2 of the work that we began with the Comprehensive Planning Committee and Nan Stolzenberg. So those recommendations coming out of her report, funding would go to both pay for the consultant and pay for legal counsel to help us in actually drafting whatever those amendments to our zoning code would be. I also wanted to have the minutes reflect our gratitude to Deirdre Houston and Tim Colopy for their letters of support. They went out of their way to do that for the town, which is terrific, and it certainly will help our application. But it's, I almost feel like we should put a PowerPoint together to show everybody the number of questions, the length of these questions.
Oh, you can't imagine.
Having to refer to code, it was like being in law school all over again. And Mary navigated it like, a chief detective in pro. So, thank you.
We started with one question, and then depending upon how you answered that.
Oh, yeah.
More popped up.
Oh, sure.
And more popped up.
Wow.
It just, it seemed like it was a never-ending game, but we got through it. And I appreciate, and I'm going to say too, Leslie was traveling, and...
And Mary had COVID. Listen, this is how,
Yeah.
the ladies unite on the CFA. We were just, I'm like, Mary, are you okay? I sent you a revised draft. But anyway, it was terrific, and it's and I'm really hopeful and optimistic that we will
Right.
be successful with that, and it's really terrific. And we should know, as we said earlier, by September, which the timing of that is also quite convenient with our timing with everything else. So hopefully we'll be triumphant.
Thank you so much for doing that, both of you.
Gosh, no, it was. I mean, I do think we should circulate it because it is quite something. But ZBA did not meet in July. Their next meeting is on Tuesday, and they have a pretty full agenda for Tuesday, but they had nothing on their agenda for July. The planning board met last Tuesday. They had 2 main applications before them. The first application was the Wolf Clark application, which is a renovation addition on Burbank Road. There are 3 buildings on the site now, all built at different times, a house, a guest house, and a garage. There's also a pond that's about 1 acre and a stream. They're looking to renovate the house by adding a roof gable and an addition. So the pre-existing structure is non-conforming, as is the setback. So they're going back about 9 feet from the pond, and their new addition would also be non-conforming with the way that the property is situated. They had been before the committee the prior month, either the month before or the month before that, where they asked them to come back with a more extensive site plan so they could see how far where the actual setbacks were and where the water features were. They did come back, the representatives did come back with the site plan, and they showed where the stream was and the buffer line. They have done had a very thorough, I should say, site plan and presentation about how not only where were things located, but why they couldn't accommodate this this addition in any other place, that they really had to do it in this non-conforming area close to this pond outside of the buffer line. There was a question that came up and some extensive discussion about whether the expansion of the property was too broad or perhaps may exceed the 25% rule for expansion. So because of that and because of some of the other non-conforming elements of the application, the planning board felt that question should go before the ZBA for a special permit. As to the question about the buffer and the wetlands, they didn't want to decide on the application before hearing formally from Steve Marino. Steve had COVID and was not able to be there. So before they make a determination at the September meeting, they want to make sure that they've heard formally from Steve, either in person or again in writing. He gave initial impressions, but they want more information from him. They voted unanimously to put the application on the calendar for a public hearing at the September meeting. They also, I believe, they intended to do a site visit with some members from the CAC. And did that take place today?
We did that.
Okay.
Physically, we haven't discussed anything yet.
Okay. But you did the site visit today?
Yes.
That's
Before this
terrific.
meeting.
Yes, before.
Great. So I'm sure we'll hear about that at the September planning board meeting, about how that went and the planning board's impressions of the structures and where they fall near the wetlands. The second application was called Apollo Fields. It's an application on behalf of the owners of the old Johnson Estate on Mabbittsville Road. Their representatives were their architects, Dan Catalmo and his son, also Daniel Catalmo. There's a Victorian right there. They were terrific and they're really thorough, thoughtful application. There's a Victorian you can see from Mabbittsville Road. Sort of set back from that is an old barn. So they want to, they'd like to build an accessory apartment where there currently is no apartment. So take the same, it's actually not the same, expand the footprint a bit of the barn. But because the barn is already there, they're allowed to build a new barn. They want to build a new barn with a sort of a caretaker's cottage apartment as a component of that. The property there where that barn sits is on 60 acres. And this apartment would be for a property manager and his family and sort of a farm office to oversee the larger property. But they're coming to the planning board for a special use permit for the accessory apartment. None of the work is within the wetlands buffer. They had originally come with an application that may have had some runoff go into an adjacent stream. They've rejiggered it so that it's not anywhere near that, and they don't need any kind of wetlands permit. They do need new septics, so they need county approval for that. They also need county approval because it's a long county road. And they've been referred to the fire department. There's a sort of a connection or an overhang that connects the barn to this other part of the barn apartment. So they want to make sure that fire trucks are able to get through and be accessible there. The planning board made a motion to classify it as a type 2 action under seeker, and they set a public hearing for September 6th. So it's a pretty straightforward application. The Kiernan application had been on the agenda. It was removed. They asked for an extension regarding their special permit application for the contracting company that's in the old Stagecoach Deli space, but there's issues, as we're all aware of, with other parts of that property, and so that application they asked for an extension and not to come before the planning board on the permit with regard to the company itself. And then lastly, there was a motion made by a planning board member to change the meeting time to 6:30, which everyone agreed to. So they're going to start that in October.
That's great.
Yeah. Because they already have public meetings scheduled for September, so they wanted to keep things going for October.
Yep.
The CAC meeting was held last Wednesday, August 3rd, and thanks to Howard's recorder, because I was out of town, I was able to listen to you, Howard, and Margaret, and everyone else who was in attendance. It was terrific. Thank you for doing that. And they opened the meeting with sort of a brief, Margaret did a brief description of her work and her work with Mary and with Mike on getting the natural resource inventory map. I guess they've located the map that was done, or the work that was done with Hudsonia some years back, which includes structural data but not a formal report or any kind of formal professional recommendation. So they're going to use that, I think, as the baseline, and add to that work that Hudsonia's already done whatever new mapping comes out from the DEC, excuse me, in 2023 is when they're going to provide that. And I guess there's some additional vernal pools or other kind of mapping that you have that you can overlay onto this map. Is there anything else that needs to be done there? That's the...
It's just based on if we can get money to do more than that.
Right. Which would be, I think, there's a couple of grants that, I think could be available to us to pursue that if we wanted to have, a body beyond us kind of helping us navigate that.
Yes.
Yes, Howard.
Sort of this is for Bob, actually, because he's involved with the maps and everything. The original zoning code online that people would look at refers to the old maps still. They're still on that zoning code. And so anybody looked at them, there's like 5 maps near the end of the zoning code. It's been there forever. They're not the maps that we're using, like the one when Bob went down to the Cornell Cooperative and we got those new maps. They're not addressed anywhere, so nobody knows those maps exist. And it's somewhat part of the zoning code. I don't know where it goes exactly, but it's got to be fixed somewhere. Probably in the zoning code, some way to refer to the maps exist. I don't know, maybe Mary has the maps or somebody has those maps. Because anybody who looks at the zoning code looks at those maps, they're looking at the wrong maps.
Yeah. Well, I'm making a list. I'm running inventory of items. John Parisi just emailed me yesterday about something he thought that the board, and I just made a note of it here, that as we talk to each other and Jeff about, are these things we need to tweak in the zoning code, this might be something else that we need to put on the web.
Well, a new set of the maps were given to planning and zoning, the ZBA and the planning board, and we have a set here.
I don't know if we have an electronic set.
No electronic.
No electronic set. And I believe we may need to do something with the zoning code, do an amendment to the zoning code to reference the date of whatever maps we're
which maps,
using,
that makes sense.
And get electronic
Howard,
copies.
I have all the notes on that at home, but do you remember the guy's name? I'm sure I have it because I have a folder for it. But
The third person we used to work with is no longer there.
Oh.
There is a new person, and I spoke with him about a year and a half ago, and at that time he was overwhelmed, and he was working remotely, and they weren't in any hurry to assist us with it.
But he did send the maps to the printer in PDF form or something, or some sort of form.
He's
And
still
they were
there,
able
I just
to
can't
print.
remember the name at the moment. He just said
I have it
an
at home,
announcement.
so I'll find out. And
Okay.
I'll find out, and I may even have it on my computer for all I know.
Yeah, you would, because he said that both of us emailed, so I can
Right.
find your
Yep.
email.
Yep.
If not, let me know and I'll look, see if I can find the email.
I will.
Okay.
We'll work on that.
Yeah, but I think we need to reference it in the zoning code.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I mean, I do know that we gave a copy of the physical maps to planning and zoning to use.
Okay. The other big item that the CAC reported on was the Climate Smart Communities. Pam Scott formally submitted our resolution and the appropriate paperwork, and the state approved our submission that we are now officially a climate smart community or climate smart town. And that's terrific because, again, it makes us eligible for grants and other free services like free trainings for
Is that why it's so hot?
CSCs. Exactly. But it's interesting, having just gone through the application, it is very much a part of the state's application process, asking how we are a climate smart community, what we're doing, and so we had to answer some of those questions. This can be very helpful. So during that week when we were answering those questions, Margaret happened to be talking to Pam and said, well, we haven't actually formally filed our registration with the state, so like, oh gosh, can we please get that in before we submit our grant so that we make sure that we're totally buttoned up, and if they look to see if we actually are, we are. So anyway, thank you to you and Pam for getting
Margaret.
that in such a a quick and thorough way. That was terrific. Community Day, the CAC discussed having a booth at Community Day. The date for Community Day is September 10th. Their thought was to provide materials to residents on the CAC and what it does, and about the fact that we're a climate smart community and what does that mean, all that kind of stuff. I think the consensus was that they might just have some materials and a representative at the Carey Institute's tent instead of having their own tent. So that was discussed. I think that's being worked on. And then Howard provided a synopsis of the applications that I described before the planning board. And the kind of the big sort of takeaway or next steps on that was the site inspection, which I guess you all did today. And lastly, there was some concern over some CAC files. I guess the Greenwoods have kept their files and historic files and notes about CACs. Well, just also historical information about properties and any CAC information on a property or an application. And their binder was, I don't want to sound too dramatic, but it was tampered with, but some things were missing, and it was upside down or something. I mean,
There were loose pages, pages backwards, pages missing.
So they brought that to the attention of the committee at the meeting. It might just be something as we
Where
talk
is that
about.
stored here?
That's down in the planning boards, everyone's in the same office
Right,
now.
yeah.
And it's all those binders that
Yes.
Stephanie had done
Yeah.
for the town through the CAC, and it's part of still the historic
Well, that room is
research.
locked.
Correct, it is locked. So, and it happened since Mary, Mike, and I were down there looking for the NRI stuff, and the August 3rd meeting. So we don't know who, but the binder was out and everything. So it wasn't like they pulled the binder out and it was missing some stuff. It was apparently out. So.
Was there anything else in the binder besides that particular property?
Yes, it was that section of properties. And one property is missing.
Oh. Okay. I'll be in touch with you.
Margaret, if there's a desire to educate the community on what CAC is doing, and when I was at the farmer's market 2 weeks ago, the Historical Society had a tent down at the far end.
Right.
Maybe that's an option.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. We would definitely, probably want to do something like that as well soon. It's just timing.
Yeah.
I don't know where August is even going at this point, but it seems to be almost gone for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely, and we.
Not fast enough.
Of course, there is that side of it. But yes, thank you, Mike, for that idea.
But Mary, I'm sure will look into that. But I haven't followed up or circulated to anybody besides maybe I sent it to you, Gary. I didn't do it for this meeting. The record retention policy, which is state code, I wanted just to put it in a binder and put it in, just like we put the municipal, just so anybody has a question, and then if each department needs to do a cheat sheet, or if somebody's new, cheat sheet of what gets posted when, and if there's anything that's related to record retention, like, I don't know, can a planning board member, Mary, go in and get the key to go to the room? They should probably be able to.
They have to come into our office to get it. It's not,
Duplicated key.
yeah.
Like, no, they don't all have a key.
No, they don't. And,
I'm just wondering if it's sort of
We should
standard, like
probably
you've got to
ask around and see if somebody borrowed the
Yeah.
pages.
right, and I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if somebody utilized it or.
to photocopy it and forgot to put it back or something.
Or they stuck it in the wrong folder.
Correct. It's a very simple solution,
Right.
answer probably.
Because sometimes people, if they're doing work on a property, they will ask to borrow some of the information.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is, we're able to photocopy it pretty easily.
Yeah.
But we don't just go down, say, go on down and make yourself at
Yeah.
home. Either Kristen pulls it for anything to do with building zoning
Right.
or planning.
I don't think the red squirrel got it.
No.
Yeah. It does sound
Got a lot
like,
of stuff
I
down
said
there,
to
but
not
Margaret, I said, I heard this, I'm looking at this, what happened down there? This is So anyway, I'm sure we'll sleep that out. And then the last thing is I am keeping this list. I sent you a couple things that have come up, and I have to look at John Parisi's email to me 2 days ago too about something to do with the definition of non-conforming with zoning code and how it's being interpreted, just to make sure that it's consistent with the different boards. So things like that, and then the date on the code, things like, I'll just make the list, and then whenever we get there, probably in September or October, when we sit with Jeff and kind of go, or however that process is going to work with Nan and James Stott, or if this is probably separate because it's not related to hospitality, we can cross that bridge. But in the meantime, I'll keep my tally of issues that come up at planning and CAC and zoning that people say, it'd be great if the code did this, or the code's confusing here, or we need, like the, mixed use issue, just things like that, or, anyway, so we can cross that bridge another time.
Good
That's all for
report,
me.
Thank you, good report. Margaret, you have something for us? No?
I'm just in here enjoying the
Good for
evening
you,
and listening.
enjoying the show? Good, how about you, Howard?
No, nothing.
Good.
Guy's name is Sean Carroll.
Sean
Yeah,
Carroll.
Sean.
Oh.
I have it in my folder, I know. Yeah. So,
Did you go through the alphabet in your head?
yeah.
No, it's
That's
just-
what I do,
Say,
I
know
go.
his
It
name.
just-
First
it's
name,
in there,
second
it's-
name.
It takes longer to come out nowadays.
I
True.
do that about 10 times a day. How much-
So do I.
So,
Yeah.
we have an executive
I
session.
know. We will leave
Yeah, but
Thank
thank you
you.
for sitting so
Thank you very
you.
much.
Oh,
patient,
yeah, no, great.
Erin.
Thank you. Have a
Thanks,
good
Margaret.
evening.
Bye,
Yeah.
Margaret.
Motion to go into executive session?
Mike, second.
Thank you.
Mike, second. Bob, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Oh, God.